Welcome to New Wave Global, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Asad Ijaz. But, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know much about water. I don't know what the Indus Water Treaty is. And a lot of you have sent me questions on the Indus Water Treaty, on what is groundwater, what is surface water, what is India going to do, what are the water regulations really, and can the Indians unilaterally put the Indus Water Treaty in what they called an abeyance and not an abrogation or not perhaps a suspension. So to basically to be able to speak about this issue, I've arranged this very instructive kind of a conversation with somebody who knows water really well. Dr. Daanish Mustafa is joining me from King's College London. He reads geography at King's College London, but has a very keen sort of eye on water in South Asia. Let me first welcome him, and we'll dive straight into our conversation about water in South Asia and the current conflict between India and Pakistan. Dr. Danish, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here, and hello to the audience as well.
Great. Thank you so much. I keep saying that this would be an instructive kind of an episode because I want to sort of learn from you. My audience would also learn from you what the water policy issues are, what is the current sort of water crisis in the region. But just for a starter, could you tell me briefly about what the Indus Water Treaty was and why the two countries had to sign it in 1960?
So in 1948, the government of Indian Punjab stopped the flow of that canal.
Hmm.
So there was a standstill agreement, and Pakistanis freaked out that, oh my God, you're going to stop the canal because the canal headwaters were in India and its command area was in Pakistan. So subsequently, they opened it, and there was a standstill agreement, and there was a tremendous amount of paranoia on part of Pakistan as a result of that episode that India can somehow throttle us by stopping the flow of canals and rivers. So, along the same lines, in the New Deal era under President Roosevelt, there was the Tennessee Valley Authority that was instituted in the United States, and there was a great degree of optimism and furor about the ability of water works and water engineering to bring about development. Now, under the Roosevelt administration, the American South, particularly the Tennessee River Valley, was a particularly depressed and poverty-laden kind of a part of the United States. And Tennessee Valley Authority, which had a series of dams and irrigation projects and hydroelectricity and what have you, was seen as a means of uplifting that poverty-ridden area. Turns out that Think, who was the administrator of the Tennessee Valley Authority, went about in the post-colonial world trying to promote this particular model of water development, of link canals and dams and barrages and all of that all over the world. In 1952, the government of India and Pakistan approached the World Bank, and most so Pakistan, that we want to have some sort of a treaty and agreement, an international agreement between the two countries, which would ensure continued flow of water to Pakistan and use of water for peaceful purposes, for development and what have you. And that negotiation started as a result of that. And the treaty was eventually signed in 1960 by the Ayub Khan government, and which ensured that the three eastern rivers were given away to India, which was an unprecedented situation, because according to international law, all riparians have a right to equitable apportionment of water in natural waterways. Pakistan surrendered that right in case of the Ravi, Satluj, and Beas rivers and awarded all of it to India. Weird. And then it gained 80% of the water rights to the western rivers, three western rivers, with the assurance by the World Bank and a series of donors, which included India, by the way, to build replacement works of primarily Mangla and Tarbela Dam and multiple link canals between the Indus, three western rivers, and the three eastern rivers, in order to compensate for the water that Pakistan had given away to India. And that's where the story begins.
So when you say that, give all of the eastern rivers to India, what does that mean? How would they sort of are you sort of referring to the fact that India would be able to build dams and build some kind of gated canals on those three rivers? How would they block the entire flow of water? And wouldn't India be at the risk of flooding itself if it does so?
Not just the risk, they have been flooding themselves as a result
Okay.
of that.
Okay.
Article 2 of the treaty says provisions regarding eastern rivers. All the waters of the eastern rivers, which is Ravi, Satluj, and Beas, shall be available for the unrestricted use of India.
Right.
That's the right you conceded. Under international law, you would say India will have a right to use of the three eastern rivers,
Hmm.
subject to Pakistan's fulfillment of its rights under international law to the rivers, to the water flows of the rivers.
Right.
That's what you would have said under international law. Under
Hmm.
the treaty, you said all the waters of the eastern rivers will be available for the unrestricted use of India.
Hmm.
Do as you please. We
And
have nothing to say about it.
and does Pakistan, just uh, I don't know if you've looked at data on this, but has Pakistan had any access to any waters from the three eastern rivers since 1960, or has India been blocking all the flow of water to Pakistan?
Blocking all the flow is not possible,
No.
right?
Okay.
During monsoon times, they have to let out, otherwise, all of their dams are going to go.
Hmm.
There isn't a dam in the world that can hold back the flood waters
Yeah.
of the
Right.
Indus rivers, Indus basin
Right.
rivers. So during monsoon, they let out the water because they have to, otherwise their dams are going to go. During the winter season, where there's not much demand for water, but all the same, they can hold back some of the rivers. So it's basically they have control over whether how much water they let out and how much water they keep in their dams. They have built the Indira Gandhi Canal to supply water to Rajasthan. The Indira Gandhi Canal was not able to have the kind of benefits that were envisioned to turn Rajasthan into a granary of India
Hmm.
because of a whole set of ecological reasons and
Right.
uh, physical geographical reasons. So Indira Gandhi Canal is an unmitigated failure. Many would say that it's more of a tank ditch rather than actually an irrigation canal, but they've spent a lot of money on that because their engineers are no different from our engineers because they love engineering, whether it makes sense or not, right? So they have the infrastructure and the capability to hold back water during the dry season, which is the winter season, and they do that at times from time to time. Uh, Monsoon, flood season, they can't do anything about it, and so they have to let it out. Otherwise, their dams are going to go.
So, on the coming to the point of the Western rivers, I mean,
Mhm.
Pakistan, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not an upper riparian when it comes to the Western rivers either. So how do we get the same kind of access, the unrestricted access, as you call it, that India gets in the case of Eastern rivers? Well, what does the treaty
Okay,
say about that?
the treaty says about the Western rivers, Article 3, Pakistan shall receive for unrestricted use all those waters of the Western rivers which India is under obligation to let flow under the provision of paragraph 2. India shall be under an obligation to let flow all the waters of the Western rivers and shall not permit any interference with these rivers except for the following cases restricted except as provided in item C, paragraph 5, case of each annexure C, Indus River and Jhelum to be drainage basin thereof. Domestic use, non-consumptive use, agricultural use, and generation of hydroelectric power, as
Right.
set out in Annexure D.
So even for the Western rivers, we are dependent on what the India lets off to Pakistan, the amount of water that it would
No,
let.
we're not. No, we're not.
Okay.
They have no infrastructure on the Indus, so they
Okay.
have no capability to stop the Indus.
Okay.
They could build that capability, but that capability will not last,
Right. Okay.
right?
Okay. Yes.
So on the Jhelum, they don't have any substantial infrastructure. They could try and build that infrastructure, but that infrastructure will fail because of geology and because of the physical geography and the hydrology of the Jhelum. And they have a Baglihar Dam on the Chenab, which is a hydroelectric dam. And when you build a hydroelectric dam, what you're basically doing is building a waterfall,
Hmm.
right? So unless you let water out, you can't generate any electricity.
So, Dr. Danish, in your opinion, what, I mean, not just a matter of opinion, I don't know if you've looked at data again, but how much of Pakistan's total water use
Mhm.
is taken directly from the eastern rivers? Because the Indians are now saying that we'd be able to dry Pakistan up. So how do you see those threats?
I say give it a go. Give it a go. They can't.
Okay.
They can't.
So do you think that our water needs can be sort of partially fulfilled by the access that we have?
Okay.
I mean,
64% of arable land in Pakistan is fresh groundwater zone, right? Fresh groundwater.
right.
In fresh groundwater zone, 80% of the crop water requirements are met by groundwater. Okay? In 1960, when they signed the Indus Water Treaty, it only covers surface water because they did not understand groundwater at the time.
Hmm. Hmm. And could you
Second thing
explain
is
the difference for my audience, please? Sorry to cut you.
groundwater is underground and surface water is on the surface. Surface
Okay.
water is springs and rivers and canals and that sort of thing.
Right.
Groundwater is what you extract with a tube well, with a well, dug well, and so on and so forth, right?
Right.
So they did not understand groundwater at all in those days.
Hmm.
So that everything in the treaty is about surface water.
Hmm.
But in fresh groundwater zone, which is 64% of your arable land, primarily in Punjab,
Hmm.
right? 80% of the crop water requirements are actually met by tube wells.
Hmm.
Today, there are about 1.5 to 2 million tube wells in Punjab alone,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
In 1960, they were like 6 tube wells, if there were any, right? In Punjab. So it was not part of the picture in those days when the treaty was signed, when the treaty was being negotiated.
Right.
Times have changed. The farmers have switched to demand-based management, which is basically met through a tube well.
Hmm.
Irrigation canal, the way they are designed in Pakistan, the way they were designed in India and during the colonial times, are not demand-based. They have a constant slope and a certain amount of water that is within a particular envelope within which they can be operated. Whether you need it or not, it's going to be available because of the Warabandi system.
Hmm.
So when you need flexibility, you supplement it with groundwater. So 80% of the groundwater of the crop water requirements in fresh groundwater zone are met by tube wells, by groundwater. Right? That's one thing.
Hmm.
Second thing is that up to 60 to 70% of the drainage of the Jhelum and Chenab are within Pakistan. Right? And more than 90% of the drainage of the Indus River is within Pakistan.
Hmm.
So basically, India has a capability. Let's pretend that they go completely bonkers and they invent some weird technology, which is Star Trek level, to stop the flows of the western rivers altogether for whatever 30%, 30 to 40% they have in Chenab and Jhelum, and whatever 10% that they comes through India. Those are the numbers.
Right. And do you think that, I mean, just being the devil's advocate here, do you think that the Pakistani foreign minister and everyone else who's now threatened India of, um, abrogating or suspending the Simla Agreement, and then perhaps even going to the extent of attacking India if the Indus Water Treaty is suspended, is doing that despite knowing that India would not be successfully able to dry us up without that kind of infrastructure?
You see, the problem is that in case of India and Pakistan, the
Hmm.
weird thing is I don't know why they separated because they do exactly the same thing, the same kind of idiocies with each other. I mean, my God, why bother? You guys are cut from the same cloth. Seriously. I don't know how many of them have actually read the treaty. I don't think they have. I have the treaty open in front of me.
Yeah.
But I mean, one simple question you can ask any one of the people who come on the television or the media or anywhere else, or even the ministers, ask them, have you read the treaty? And the answer will be no, most likely.
Yeah.
So they don't know what they're talking about. Neither the Indians nor the Pakistanis, most of them, right?
Hmm.
So that's one problem. Second thing is that within the Pakistani water establishment, which is, I fear, is also true of the Indian water establishment, they are primarily civil engineers. They are not hydrologists. They are not geomorphologists. They are not hydrogeologists. They don't know the science of water, unfortunately. There may
Hmm.
be an odd one here and there, but the people in charge are engineers. Engineers don't know anything about water. What they know about is how to control water, right? They
Right.
don't understand the surface groundwater relationships. They do not understand how the water flows, how it can be stopped, or what have you. There's a whole set of mythologies around it, around which they're making these sorts of pronouncements, which I think are extremely irresponsible in the first instance. Second thing is, and I sort of connected to the cultural part of it, that in both India and Pakistan, there's a very deep crisis of masculinity, right? There's the Hindutva masculinity problem, there's the Islamic masculinity problem, and that masculinity problem can only be sublimated through threats of violence. Enjoy yourself.
I didn't
It's a
know the water.
testosterone. It's a testosterone-driven
Yeah.
aggression.
Uh,
Because I'm talking from a scientific perspective. I don't
right,
care, right?
right,
That's what I'm talking about.
right.
So I'm asking you, why are you doing this if this is the case? Well, maybe you don't know what's the case. First of
Mhm.
all, there's a problem of competence and knowledge.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the second thing is that there is that testosterone issue, perhaps.
So are you saying in a way that the Indus Water Treaty, things have materially changed since 1960 and the treaty has become increasingly sort of irrelevant, and even if India puts it into abeyance, it won't change the status quo materially? Is that, would you go to the extent of saying that?
There are a couple of perspectives. First of all, there is no provision in the treaty to hold it in abeyance.
Yeah,
So there is no legal basis for that.
right,
Okay.
right. Yeah.
But of course, as a sovereign country, India can do what it wants, right? It will be violating its own laws because a treaty has the force of law once it is ratified by the parliament of the country, right?
Right.
So the parliament of India has made Indus Water Treaty into law. They're violating their own law by holding it in abeyance. Was there a bill in the Indian parliament saying that from here on, we're going to hold it in abeyance, so we're pulling out of it, right? It's an executive decision. There's a letter from the Jal Shakti secretary to the water ministry of Pakistan. Well, if you want to hold it in abeyance legally, write to the bank. That's the third party to the. It's not a bilateral treaty. It's a trilateral treaty. It's an international treaty guaranteed by the World Bank. So anytime you want to pull out of it, hold it in abeyance, change anything in it, you talk to the bank. Have they written to the bank? They have not. So legally, it doesn't mean anything. Now, of course, it scores a lot of points. The Indians are very excited. Hindutva people are, beating their drums. Oh my God, oh my God. And in Pakistan, oh my God, look at these devious, wily Indians. We're going to teach them a lesson. So everyone is having a field day. But if you're thinking about it legally, that doesn't mean anything. Second thing is, what does it functionally mean? I mean, Indus Waters Treaty is the most unscientific, unfavorable treaty ever signed by a lower riparian in the history of the world. And we
Hmm.
knew that in the history of the world.
That's
And we knew
interesting.
that. Yeah, we voluntarily relinquished our equitable apportionment right to the three eastern rivers. Which country does that? Which country does that? And we conceded 20% of the three western rivers, where India has not been able to use 2% of the water so far, perhaps. They're nowhere near meeting that 20% or whatever the local use that they were going to undertake in there. They did not because they cannot. What are you going to irrigate with the Jhelum? The Kashmir Valley? There's no need for irrigation there necessarily. What are you going to irrigate with Chenab? There are no major plains out there that you can irrigate, and whatever local plains are there, you can do that. Now everyone says, "Oh, look here! That they stop the flows of the three eastern rivers." In the three eastern rivers, before the eastern rivers entered Pakistan, they go through the vast plains of Punjab, and it's easier to build infrastructure from there to divert the water into Rajasthan. Where are you going to divert the water of the Indus from Ladakh? Please take a look at the map. Where are you going to take the water? You're going to pump it 1,000 meters above its bed and then irrigate the high plateau of Ladakh? Are you serious? What are you going to do with it? Okay, you're going to build a dam on the Jhelum River. The only place where you can build a dam on the Jhelum River, on the main stem river, is in the Uri Gorge. Build a 700-foot high dam there if you want to stop the flow, have any meaningful sort of control over the Indus Jhelum River. That will inundate the entire Kashmir Valley, which means there will be no longer a Kashmir issue. Problem solved, right? Give it a go. In which geological reality can you build a 500-600 foot high dam in the Chenab River to stem the entire flow of it, the 30% whatever that they have control over, 30 to 40%. And Kashmir is the most seismically active zone in the world. There are 500 to 600 tremors a day, and imperceptible tremors. Any concrete infrastructure is going to be gone before you know what happened.
So are you basically saying that the western rivers that India gave to Pakistan were of no use to India in the first place? But
They
what
couldn't.
But what
Yeah,
Pakistan gave to India was extremely useful for Pakistan. Is that what you're
of
saying?
course. Yes, because
Right.
that's where your agriculture came from. Basically, about 20 to 30% of the irrigated area was dependent upon that at the time, right? Those were the rivers that we were dependent upon. We built the link canal system, right? And we built the storage infrastructure of Jhelum and Mangla and Tarbela, in order to compensate for from one season to the other. That's about all the level of storage that you have there. So it was an awful treaty, and everyone told Ayub Khan at the time. And until 1958, Pakistan had no desire to sign this treaty because the World Bank and others were pushing them in a certain direction to sign the treaty, and they were actually cables at the time that let's not do this, let's not do this. This is catastrophic for us. There's no reason for us to sign this. Why should we do that? But when Ayub Khan came to power in 1958, everything changed because they said, development happens when you build infrastructure, right? Dams are a symbol of development. We don't have the money, we'll get the money. We'll make India pay for it. So they were fascinated by that, and Ayub Khan said that this is my personal responsibility that I'm signing it. I know that it's a nonsensical. I know that I've heard you that this is a bad treaty, but I'm going to sign it because you're going to get money. So by that time, in 1958, 59, the Indians understood that we are not interested in water, we're interested in money for infrastructure. So they basically had us sign on to the starting negotiating position in 1952. Which treaty in the world do you sign off where you concede the starting negotiating position
Of
of
one
the
of the
upper line
parties. Of one
of
of the
one of the
parties.
parties? That's not a negotiation. Why did you
Right.
waste all that time? You should have signed it in 1952 if you're going to concede everything that India was asking for.
Hmm. That's why the numbers of the second 5-year plan start looking very, very good because Pakistan is getting excessive foreign aid during those 5 years. I think we were
Happy
growing.
times. Happy times.
Right, right. So is there, I mean, abeyance or suspension, like you said, is legally off the table, but is there a room for renegotiation? Does the treaty sort of keep that, reserve that right of any of the parties to approach the World Bank to renegotiate the treaty?
They could do that with mutual agreement,
Right.
perhaps. Maybe the mechanisms can be found. I'm not an international lawyer, so treaty lawyer or contract lawyer who could advise you on that. Maybe they could do that.
Hmm.
See, Pakistan also under Article 4,
I'm planning to speak to Eram Sattar on that as well, probably in the next few days. So she
by
understands
all
the
means.
law.
But
Yeah.
under Article 4, I think it is, under Article 4, Pakistan said that we will receive all the
Yeah.
pollution drains that come from eastern Punjab, the
Right.
Hodiara drain, the Kasur Nala, the Salman Shah drain, and the Fazilka drain.
Yeah.
The entire toxic agricultural and industrial waste of East Punjab, Pakistan is obligated to receive within its territory, according to the treaty, Article 4. Take a look at that. So, if that's the treaty that you're worried about, Pakistanis, which is poisoning your land, which is depriving which is conceding the rights of your land, but then be worried about it.
That's the treaty you want to test your nuclear weapons for.
Do
I
it.
mean, understandable, but so on that point of groundwater, and you said that our irrigation is massively now dependent on groundwater in
Mhm.
Pakistan, like our sort of the groundwater is the major source. I think you said 80% for our
In fresh
crop.
groundwater zone.
Sorry,
Fresh groundwater zone.
fresh groundwater. Okay, I wish I knew the distinction, but I'll I
You
mean,
see, in the interior of the Doabs,
okay,
between the two rivers, interiors, the groundwater tends to be saline.
right, right,
In Sindh, a few kilometers from the Indus River main stem, the
Mhm.
groundwater starts being saline,
Right, right.
which is not usable for agriculture or drinking water purposes.
Okay, got it. Right.
Yeah.
So, so has groundwater, I mean, my question about groundwater is, has it been depleting? I mean, people say that, we've um, we've overdug the wells and the wells are
Yes.
drying up, it's depleting now, and we have to rely on the canals again, and so on and so forth. So is the groundwater depleting?
Groundwater is expensive,
Right.
right? uh, your Abiana rates for irrigation have
Hmm.
not changed since 1970.
Hmm.
They're frozen in 1970.
Hmm. Hmm.
People no longer pay for it.
Hmm.
You can revise the Abiana rate to reflect the present realities.
Hmm.
1970 was what, 55 years ago?
Yeah.
So 55 years old prices you're paying for your Abiana. It is politically not viable for Pakistan to change it. I don't know why they don't do it. One thing. So it's a distorted kind of a market. Second thing is groundwater is you have renewable groundwater. It's not fossil groundwater.
Hmm.
It's renewable groundwater. Every time you have floods, your groundwater is replenished. Floods are a blessing that way, right? The third thing is that groundwater is the easiest thing to regulate.
Hmm.
Just make people pay the price of the electricity. And when they pay for the electricity for pumping water from 100 feet across a 6-inch pipe, it
Hmm.
will automatically focus the minds and they won't waste it.
But how do we isolate the energy tariff for a pump and electricity, say, used in a home for residential purposes? It's
Very
difficult to
easily,
sort
you
of.
already do it. Why is it difficult? You already do the industrial electric connections. You already do the domestic electric connections, and you also do the agricultural electric connection.
Right.
It's not difficult to do. You've been doing it.
But so are you saying that, a small well in a village should be categorized as an industrial use, right? Or probably
Or
because
agricultural use. It already is here.
okay,
I'm not saying that there's something new. I'm just saying make them pay the tariff.
right, right, okay,
If you
right.
make them pay the tariff, the most deficit in electricity is
Hmm.
experienced by QESCO,
Hmm.
Quetta Electric Supply Corporation, because it was a flat rate for agricultural water use,
Hmm.
which is why they have the huge deficit. And in
Hmm.
Sakhar Electric
Hmm.
Supply,
Hmm.
again, because of the leakage from agricultural water use. And
My
sometimes 50 to 60 to 70% of the water of the electric use in certain rural areas is for water pumping. So if you rationalize the price of water, you will not have any depletion issues, and you won't have a deficit either, and you won't have circular debt either.
my understanding was that most of these small farmers would be having residential connections and not commercial or industrial connections. But because Pakistan makes these three categories: commercial, residential, and
Small
industrial.
farmer cannot afford a tuber,
Like, I mean, yeah,
cannot afford
yeah.
the capital cost, and cannot afford the operational costs.
Hmm.
It's the medium to large farmers that do.
Medium to large, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, understood. So what do you think is going to happen now? What do you think would be the drop scene of what's happening between India and Pakistan, especially on the water issue? What do you foresee?
You must have. What can you foresee when you're in a zoo? What do you foresee? How can one foresee? Ask an IR person who talks to these people. I mean, I'm telling you as a water researcher.
Hmm.
I'm not an IR person. I'm not someone who's privy to any internal conversations of the government of Pakistan or the government of India
Hmm.
for to have any basis. You see, what I foresee is meaningless because I don't have any specific expertise in the matter.
Right.
I'm saying that if it were a rational conversation, then I could foresee. But if it's an irrational, emotion-driven conversation, then I'm not privy to the emotions of the pugilists.
Hmm. Yeah, I think there's another issue within Pakistan on the Cholistan Canal, and I think the CCI has now decided that we aren't going ahead with it. And Sindh is using the same argument that we are a lower riparian within Pakistan. I don't know if you've been following the issue, but
I have been.
and um, so one argument that people in Sindh have been using, and I wanted to run that past you, is that water levels in the Sutlej have dropped significantly. And now, if the water is diverted to Cholistan, we'd be completely dried up. Do you think Sindh would be dried up if that happens? And have water levels really gone down in the Sutlej?
देखिए, all the waters in Pakistan are fully utilized.
Hmm.
There is no extra water.
Hmm.
The kind of water, the 6 canals that they were going to build, are going to have to be at the expense of someone. Now, whether it is Sindh or whether it is southern Punjab or whether it is whoever, I don't know. But
Right.
it has to be at the expense of someone because nothing reaches the delta, right?
Hmm.
So obviously, then all the water is used. Where is
Yeah.
this extra water coming from,
Right.
right?
Right.
Second thing is that the 6 canals are going to fail. Within a year or two, they're going to fail if they build it, if they're stupid enough to build it. Under Musharraf, they built the Kachi Canal. It has failed. Billions of rupees sunk in there. It has failed. So
When
these
you say
canals,
failed, what?
because
Sorry.
they don't deliver water.
Okay.
There is no agricultural productivity coming from it. Kachi
Hmm.
Canal cuts hundreds of hill torrents at a right angle. Every time there's a hill torrent, the canal is breached.
Hmm.
Now you need to spend as much money as you spent to build the canal in order to protect the canal, right?
Hmm.
And it will still not work because there are hundreds of hill torrents, right? It's the same sort of a thing. You have a right bank outfall drain, which they are building parallel to the stream of the Indus and at the right angles to all the drainage in Sindh, which means it gets breached every flood season, every raining season. They build it again, it gets breached again, they build it again, it gets breached again. What happens is contracts.
Hmm.
That's the fun part of it. That's why these canals are built. In terms of economic viability, in terms of hydrological viability, it is exactly zero.
My last question, Dr. Danesh, and thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure my audience did too. Last question. If you were put in charge, what would you do to water in this region? I mean, would you let things the way they were until a few days ago when India did not threaten Pakistan to hold the treaty in abeyance? Or would you sort of want to renegotiate the treaty? Or would you do something else? I mean, what if you were put in charge of the Indus Water Commission, what would you do?
Indus Water Commission can't do anything.
Right. Or
They
any
don't
other
have
body
they don't
for
have
that
they don't
matter.
have the
I'm
power.
just bringing, I just came up with a name, but it's like, I mean, anything.
देखिए, if I were in charge, first of all, I will run away from that charge because I know that there are some extremely powerful interests in there who will murder me and my family within 24 hours. So I would not want to be in charge. Thank you very much. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
They are very strong. There's billions of rupees being made. There's a huge political economy around these infrastructures. So realistically, promise you, you make me the president or prime minister of Pakistan, I'll run away. Before you, I mean, even if you handcuff me and drag me in there and say, okay, now you are the king in chief or whatever, I'll run away because I know that I'll die. So that's one thing. Second thing is in a hypothetical mode, I would say that if someone else were in charge and they were sensible about it and they were brave enough to confront people,
Hmm.
they'd say, well, okay, we would like to write a letter in communication with India to the World Bank and saying that we'd like to renegotiate the treaty. Or maybe we would also, and if we cannot do that, then we'd like to withdraw from the treaty altogether.
Hmm.
That we no longer want to deal with this. India doesn't like it. We don't like it. Let's get rid of it. It's an artifact. I would say that under international law, we would like to in the absence of the treaty, we want to get out of the treaty. In the absence of that, we'd like to assert our right under international law to the equitable apportionment of the waters from the three eastern rivers. We would also like to stop the drains that bring in all the pollutants into Pakistan, destroy the health and land and waters of our country. You're generating the pollution, you deal with it. I'd build a wall on these drains. I'd fill them in. There will not be a drain in Pakistan. You keep your own pollutants. Deal with it. Not our problem. Under international law, you're not supposed to deliver polluted water across international boundaries.
And would it
Stop
be
that.
very expensive to build such a protectionist kind of
No, not
infrastructure?
protectionist. There's no protectionist. You just build a little concrete wall and fill in the drain. There's no longer a drain. There's nowhere for the water to go
Mhm. Right.
across the border. There is no drain. We filled it up. It's gone. Poof, capiche. Doesn't have the capacity. So the water will back up unless
You
you
make
want to clean
everything
up your
so-
water.
you make everything sound very simple, Dr. Danish. So
Yeah,
is it and
it's a drain. It's a human-made drain, right?
okay.
You fill it up, right? There is no longer the gravity flow of it. There's nowhere for water to go. It's like a 20-foot, 10-foot, or whatever the depth of it is, deep drain coming up to the border, and out after the border, there is no gravity. There is no no way for it to go. There's just land. Where is the water going to go then? It's an
I wish
artificial one. It's not natural drainage.
I wish
Natural drainage is hard. Human
people
made is very easy.
people calling the shots had the same clarity of thought that you do and gave such straight answers. But I mean, I appreciate you doing that. But
But I can understand. You built the canal. If you fill in the canal, it's over. Now, it's a river, it's a natural drainage, right? Then you're fighting against gravity. Here you are fighting to make gravity work for you. Stop fighting. The gravity automatically, all the siltation and everything will destroy the thing. If you do it yourself, you fill it in. The water comes in a 20-foot deep channel and it gets to the border, and there is no 20-foot deep channel for it to go to. Where is it going to go? Obviously, it's going to back up.
And do you think there is also a need on the Pakistani side? And this is my last question, and I think we're nearing the end of the show.
Mm-hmm.
So one argument on the Pakistani side is that we've not built enough dams and we've not built the infrastructure at the pace at which India has built infrastructure. So do you think that there is an urgent need in Pakistan to build some kind of infrastructure? And if yes, what should that look like?
There's
Should
an
it?
urgent need to decommission some infrastructure,
Okay.
not build anything more. That's nonsense.
What
You
about
see,
small dams?
dams are in, yet there are hundreds of small dams in Potwar.
Hmm.
10% of them work, right?
Hmm.
In Balochistan, you lost about 36 dams, 22 or 36 dams in 2022. There is no need for dams. It's stupid to build dams. Dams is a late 19th century, early 20th century technology. The world has changed. Only stupid people build dams. People are decommissioning dams today. You have not left the 20th century. For heaven's sakes, yeah, catch up to you're in early 20th century. If you were to get to the late 20th century in terms of what the new water paradigms are, I'd say, okay, that's an improvement. I don't expect you to enter the 21st century. That will be another, in the 22nd century, perhaps you'll enter the 21st century. You're over 100 years behind. There are new technologies, there are new management paradigms, new thinking within water, and you're still spinning the wheel that the East India Company used to have back in the 1860s or 70s. Are you insane?
You didn't realize, Dr. Danish, you gave me, in last 30 seconds, you gave me a number of Facebook and YouTube shorts, and you've given me a bunch of thumbnails. So thank you for doing that. I mean,
You're welcome. But you see, you can understand my exasperation as a
yeah,
water researcher.
yeah, yeah.
That seriously, I mean, there's a dead white man somewhere who thought of these things in the 1860s. Yeah, bury that little monster. Look around you, look at your geography, look at where the world is going, look at what the new technologies are, look at what the new thinking is, and you're still stuck with dams.
So what is if you have to put your finger on one replacement as a new
Mm-hmm.
technology of dams, what of even perhaps small dams, what would that be? Just for us to know.
Yes, I mean, the technology, the biggest issue in Pakistan is domestic water supply and sanitation.
Right.
There are people dying of renal failure
Yeah.
in Karachi, 500 meters from where you have a golf course. Do you know that a golf course takes up enough water, more water than for 22? It can supply water to 22,000 households.
Really?
Yes, sir. Count the number of golf courses in Karachi.
I
There
don't
are
know
more,
Karachi that well, but there are lots of them in Lahore and Islamabad now.
or there are loads of them in Karachi as well.
Okay.
And meanwhile,
Hmm.
80% of your population in Karachi does not have access to drinkable water. That's a perversity, right? My biggest concern is the health and well-being of the country. when you have children dying of renal failure because of saline water that they are drinking in the biggest metropolitan area of Pakistan, you should be ashamed of yourself. What are you talking about? You can't even protect your kids. And you want to tee off on a golf course? So what do you want to do? What you want to do is focus, laser sharp focus on domestic water supply and sanitation. Jaundice should not be an experience of every child growing up in Pakistan because they're drinking shit. 100% of Pakistani children get jaundice because there is oral fecal contamination. Shame on you. Focus on that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Danish.
You're very
As I've
welcome.
already said, for very straight answers. I learned a lot. I'm sure my audience would have too. And I know a bit about Indus Water Treaty now and what's happening to
Yeah.
water in our region. Thank you so much
Now
for
you
joining.
can now you can declare yourself an expert because you know more than 99% of the people in the water sector.